What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and I have a little bit of a confession to make. So, yeah, I haven't really been very good about putting out Atlanta United reviews. I did actually upload a review about our game against Minnesota, but I don't know. I was frustrated. It was late, and I felt like it wasn't really that great of a review. So I was just like, you know what? I'll keep it. I won't publish it, but I'll just keep it uploaded in case maybe it becomes relevant later on. And then I missed the Charleston Battery game, but I saw the result was 0-0. I'm like, that seems like a boring game. I don't know if I'll watch that. And then I missed the Houston game, but I came downstairs. Like, I was going to watch it later because I had a show that night. And I come downstairs and my family's watching it. It's already 3-0 at halftime. I'm like, oh, God, I don't want to watch that. And so going into this one, I have to miss the first home game, of course, because I have a show to do. And so I'm frustrated. I'm just like, okay, please let this at least be a good game. I did manage to actually watch it on TV, so I didn't miss it at least. But I'm just like, please let it be a good game so I can, the first game that I actually see and can talk about for a few weeks, I can be positive, I can be upbeat and be like, yes, this is awesome. Thankfully, it was. Yeah, first home game of the season against DC, and time to get some revenge. So yeah, it was a good game overall. But I think a lot of that comes down to the lineup. One of the things that I did notice, even though I didn't watch the Houston game, I saw the lineup for it, and yeah, it kind of makes sense because one of the problems I had with the lineup in preseason is that we kept dropping Jeff into defense. And don't get me wrong, Jeff's a good player, but he's not a defender. He's a midfielder. He's a good defensive midfielder who can drop in as like a third defender if you need him. But one of the things he does very well is he steps in the midfield, shuts down any chance of a counterattack, and does a very good job of breaking up the play. On top of that, one of the problems that you also encounter is now you've got Chris McCann in the midfield who isn't a great player. He's okay, he's good, but he doesn't really bring anything different to the field. He doesn't bring anything special. And so when you get into the midfield and you're starting the counterattack and then Chris McCann steps in, it's not really doing enough to break down the play. And so they managed to get the ball into our defense. Perez has been having a terrible season so far, and he even made a few mistakes in this game as well. So it's one of those things where you got somebody who's a midfielder in defense, and you got another defender who's not been playing well. Kind of brings up a lot of questions, but going into this one, we finally have the duo of Parkhurst and Perez back in. Thank goodness, because they just play very well together. They do a very good job of reading each other. However, one of the issues I still will have with this, and until we find a solution, is that our best backup option we're missing a defender. Our best backup option for that is to drop our best midfielder into defense. That's not good enough. So we need to find a solution for it, whether we have a youngster that can play center defense who can play there, who's doing well, whether we need to go get somebody in the summer possibly. Whatever the case, we need another option there aside from having to drop Jeff in. As far as the rest of the lineup, you got Franco and Greg on the left and right and left respectively. They both, from the first game, obviously I didn't get to see. I heard that Franco didn't really do that well. From what I saw in this game, he did pretty well. He didn't really do anything that made me go, oh, yes, he's going to be great. But he did enough to where I'm like, okay, yeah, he takes the spot for now. He's doing a good job of stepping in. Now that we don't have Anton or we don't have Tyrone, he's stepped in and he's doing a good job. He's not really making a whole lot of mistakes. Greg, not really the same player that I remember at the beginning of last year, but definitely a step up from what I saw in preseason. So that's good to see. I'm already going into individuals, and I haven't really, whatever. Going into the midfield, Jeff did his job very well. Just the same old Jeff that I remember from last season, breaking up the play, helping us out whenever we do get the ball to keep the ball moving. He does a very good job, just keeps it simple. So really enjoy seeing him in there. And then Darlington, they form like the perfect pairing in the midfield because you got Jeff, who is just a good player at reading the game and then stepping in and winning the ball. He just does that so well. And then Darlington is a very athletic player, very quick, very strong, and does a good job of kind of combining up top. He plays very good through balls. And so you pair those two together, and it's a match made in heaven. I was so excited to see them get to play together. And for this first game, it worked wonders. I mean, we shut them down for pretty much most of the first half. I didn't get to see like the first 10, 15 minutes of it because the show was still going on. But once I started watching the first half, we really shut them down for most of the first half. So it was really good to see, and I'm really looking forward to seeing that pairing happen more often because, it worked wonders. As far as the three in front of them, it was really hard to tell who was playing where because it felt like it was kind of interchanging. For the most part, Julian Gressel stayed on the right. I still have my issues with him. I still think he's not good enough to be in the starting lineup, and frankly, he didn't really do a whole lot to prove me wrong. He had a few moments where he got on the ball and then, took it down the line pretty well, but then crossed it into absolutely nobody. So I think we've got better options in there. I think you could put Brandon out there, put Andrew out there. Either of them could probably do a bit more on the ball. And then on top of that, defensively, he doesn't have enough speed to track back well enough. So I don't really trust him on the field. And I hate the fact that he's our backup. I feel like the Gresselmania train it's got to stop. Don't get me wrong. Rookie of the Year last season, I realize it's a big deal for us. Everybody's like, he was a rookie, and look at him, he's assisting and scoring. Great, but that's because he's got good players around him. Now he's playing with like a chip on his shoulder, and he thinks he's like, I'm one of the best players in the league, and then isn't. And so he tries to do too much on the ball and then loses it. The hype has got to stop, okay? He's got to learn some humility and be like, okay, I'm not as good as everybody says I am. I was really helped out last season by a lot of good players. And we got to realize that. We got to take a step back and see he's not as good as a lot of people made him out to be last season. He's not as good as the statistics say. And that is one of the problems with the MLS for me is that it's all around statistics. You could have a great player, but they don't have the statistics. But they're not that good. Because, look at their stats. It's not all about stats, and I feel like we do have a couple players on our team that care a lot about stats, like Julian, like Joseph. We got to get that out of our heads. It's not about the stats, it's about winning games. If you can't win games if you're going to score but then not track back, not do the other side of the job. So, but as far as Miguel and Tito are concerned, both of them, fantastic games. Miguel, great goal. Tito, fantastic header to score his goal and a fantastic run to set up Joseph for the first one. They both came out just looking hungry, and it was great to see. It's one of those things where you've got one of your three attacking midfielders isn't really up to pace, isn't the same speed and same technical ability as the other two. You really have to rely on those two that do have the technical ability, and they both really stepped up and really did a good job. So that was fantastic to see. And then Joseph up top. Like I said, he is a player that does care a lot about stats. He looks like he wants to score. He wants to be on the score sheet, even if it means taking terrible shots that he has no angle. So it is one of those things where it's kind of a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it's great to have somebody who wants to score, is hungry to score, but at the same time, it also becomes very selfish. Sometimes he wants the ball to be played exactly to where he is, and he won't make another run to change it. Which, honestly, you could say that about a lot of the MLS strikers, because, look at our national team. We have strikers like that all the time. You don't play the ball right to their feet, they're done. They're not making another run. So I feel like the MLS maybe it has a hand in that. Maybe it's just the attitude around the MLS. But at the same time, he does have a lot of ability, and I do appreciate that. But there are times where I get a little bit frustrated, and I'm just like, look, it's not all about you. I get the fact you want to be a top scorer. You are the striker. You do get a lot of goals, but it's not always about you. There are times where we need you to help the team by doing something else. By laying the ball off or by making a great run to draw the defender away, which opens up room for somebody like Miguel to get in. So that's just it's a minor complaint, but it's something that's coming off of last season where I was pretty frustrated with him by the end of the season. So there's still a little bit of a frustration carrying over from last season, but we'll see going forward how that all plays out. And then, of course, looking at the subs that came on, first one to come on was Kevin Kratz, came on for I think Tito, I believe. But he came on and kind of played that attacking mid role while Miguel and Julian were playing the wings. And, didn't really see a whole lot of them. Honestly, of all the three subs that came on, I would say I saw Romario the most. Just because, all three of them came on with very limited time. And that is one problem that I will say Tata still has from last season. He still doesn't like to give his subs a whole lot of time. And yeah, that's kind of a frustration. I realize that we don't really play a whole lot of like midweek games right now, and so you can afford to play a lot of your starting lineup for a long time. But whenever you're up 3-0, it's like give some of these guys a chance to impress so you know you can trust them in future games. And that's something that I don't think he did well last season, is that he didn't give those guys on the bench enough time to do much in regular season games. And so whenever it came to, oh, we have an injury or oh, we have a red card, the guys on the bench haven't been playing enough because they only get like 10 minutes, if that, per game. That's not enough time to really get used to the play, the speed of it. You got to give your subs more time. And so I'd say, 30 minutes at the most and then like 15 minutes at the least if you're trying to give them time to get integrated into a game. So that is still a frustration for me, and I don't know if it's something that's Tata's way. He doesn't like to make a whole lot of subs, or if it's just something he doesn't think about. He's just like, oh yeah, we're up 3-0. Oh, we only got 10 minutes left. Oh, well, I guess I should put some people on. But whatever the case, Romario's the only one that came off the bench, and I'm just like, I saw him do something that I'm just like, I want to see more of that. He's not the most clever player. He's not the most technically gifted player, but his hard work to win the ball back is something that impressed me in preseason, and I saw some of it in the last 7 minutes that he was on. I'm like, that's pretty good. That's something I want to see more of. That's something that I feel like I want to experience more of out of somebody up top, because that's something that Yamil brought last season that I feel like really did help us. Now, obviously, got to bring up Yamil on DC. It's got to be a frustrating day for him, coming back to his old club and not being able to get much done. But I think we knew the danger of him, and I think we knew how to shut him down pretty well. But he is a player that he worked hard to win the ball back. Whenever it got lost, he was always running back. He's always tracking back to help out. That is something he brought that I will say was very, very special. Now, his play on the ball at times could be a little bit frustrating, not good enough passes, sometimes dribbled into pressure. But that side of it, where he won the ball back, he worked hard to win the ball back, was great. Joseph doesn't really do that. So to have a striker that will go in and work hard to win the ball back is pretty special. And he does a very good job of it. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of him. I want to see if he can improve his technical side of the game, because I do think that could be probably a complete striker, one that works hard back to win the ball, and then on top of that can also play with his feet, win the ball with his head, all that stuff. It'd be great to have a striker like that. But we'll see going forward how he sort of gets accustomed to the MLS. And then, of course, the last sub, giving him a good 2 minutes, Andrew Carlton. It's one of those things where you could tell everybody was excited. Oh, yeah, our youngster's getting in, our homegrown player's getting in. But at the same time, I'm just sitting there watching him just like, he's giving him 2 minutes. Like, what is that supposed to do? Oh, yeah, we get to see him. Great. You could always see him. I don't know. It still is a frustration that he doesn't give him more time. I think he deserves it. I think he might provide something that Julian Gressel doesn't, so why not give him a chance? But whatever the case, it is nice to see the homegrown player get in and get a little bit of time, even if it's not a whole lot of time. And of course, the crowd loves it. It's one of those things where as soon as he steps on the field, everybody's just applauding and cheering. He makes that one block that leads to a corner, and everybody's like, wow, yeah. So, yeah, it is for the fans, but at the same time, I feel like for the development of a player, you need to give him more than just a couple minutes. So, but that's about it for me. I apologize again for not doing a review on the Charleston game or the Houston game. Honestly, I probably just would have been very frustrated and very negative on both of those. And even the reason I didn't publish the Minnesota reviews, because I was kind of negative in that one. I don't want to be a negative person, especially because I feel like part of our problems in those games is that players are playing out of position. So I feel like going into this one, this is the first game where we had our starting lineup, aside from, Julian being in. The rest of them, I feel like this is where they're going to play. This is probably our best 11, aside from not having Ezekiel in. So I feel like this is probably the first review I'm doing of Atlanta United for 2018. Don't get me wrong, obviously there are going to be games where we have injuries and we have red cards. We're going to have to play some of these people that aren't first team players. But because so many people are switched around, you've got Jeff playing out of position. You don't have your two starting center backs. You have Chris McCann in the midfield, and you've got Julian Gressel. I mean, it just felt like there were too many players out of place, too many factors that played into it. It didn't really feel like it was a game where it could be like, this is what's wrong, because it's kind of obvious what's wrong. It's kind of obvious that we're missing players. So this one going into it, there's only one player we're missing. I still think we've got better options on the bench than Julian, but it works out. We get 3-1 win. We get revenge for losing to them all 3 times last season, so that's good to see. But yeah, next game, I want to say the next game is against Montreal, possibly. Can't remember now. Don't worry, I got the Atlanta United app. I'll look it up. But we do have from what I could see, I think we've got a pretty tough run of games ahead. So the next one is Vancouver. And Vancouver just beat Houston at Houston, which we could not do. So clearly they're going to be pretty tough. And then we play away at Minnesota. And Minnesota have been doing pretty well. And then we've got LA FC, who have started off the season pretty much similar to us last season. Very bright, very full of energy. So we're going to have to deal with that. We've got NYCFC at home, which is always a tough game. Then we go away to LA Galaxy. Should be pretty easy. I love making fun of LA Galaxy. So yeah, it's a pretty tough run of fixtures between March and then April. Obviously, we've got 2 weeks off until we face Minnesota after our next game. So there will be a time to rest and recover after the Vancouver game, which should be good because it should be kind of a challenge. But yeah, going into it, we've got to make sure that the energy levels are up on the field. Obviously, the energy levels for the fans is still up. We broke the MLS attendance record again. So clearly the fan level, the fan energy is still there. It's just the energy on the field has to be there. It has to be good energy from the players, from the coaching staff even, making sure we're getting players on that deserve to play. Because there is a risk that you don't come out with a lot of energy and all of a sudden you lose a couple games at the beginning of the season. We already lost one. You could lose a lot of interest at the beginning of the season. So we don't want to do that. We want to start off our season like we did last season, full of energy, putting together a good string of results at the beginning and just really trying to show that we haven't lost anything from last season. We haven't lost, our energy or our fire and fight from last season. So with all that being said, that's all my opinions. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on this game? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Atlanta United reviews. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.